Good news, bad news for Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden's not running, but she has to testify before Congress. Welcome to the Mike Broomhead Show.
Well, I got a message, I got a song. Can I get a witness? Tell me what's going on. I show the people I've been away.
All right, thank you for being here. Look at this, a brand new set here for the Mike Broomhead Show at AZTV 7. We've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about Hillary's testimony before the Benghazi Committee. 11 hours. We're going to spend some time because we could have summed it up in about 15 minutes. She could have been out of there for what we learned. We're going to talk about that. Of course, we've got Broomhead's Best. Every week we do that. A segment called Hashtag This, What's Burning Up the Internet. And we're going to talk about Joe Biden. But first, it's the sweep. Hillary Clinton, a big sigh of relief as Vice President Joe Biden went to the Rose Garden and said he will not seek the presidency. It was very odd to me that Joe Biden took about 30 seconds to say he's not running for president, and then he spent the next 20 minutes talking about what he'd do if he was president. He gave us his platform, which included 16 years of public education. In other words, not only are we screwing our kids up by not teaching them to read through high school, now we want to go the next 4 years of college and not teach them there either, and all of it free to students. What I found odd about it is he didn't say who he's going to back for president. He didn't endorse Hillary or anything else, but he sounded a lot like Bernie Sanders. I mean, it really was more of a socialist agenda, and I don't mean that as a criticism, just an observation. You want to give free college now, 4 years of college, and make that the standard in public education. It sounded very, very odd. But he also defended the president's legacy, which I thought was interesting. He said not only should Democrats be proud of the president's legacy, they should run on the accomplishments of this White House. He said Republicans are not enemies. That looked like a little bit of a shot at Hillary when they asked her during the debate, who are some of the enemies you've made that you're most proud of? Well, she said some of the Republicans. He said those are my friends, they're not enemies. And so it was just a little bit of a mixed bag of what he would do if he were a candidate. Interesting, he said he thinks he could win, but he said he didn't have time to put together a winning campaign. Well, there's 4 months before the first primary or the caucuses in Iowa. Why he didn't have time to do it? Interesting, his family was behind him, but he said no. So he's out. Now, the Speaker of the House race, we know that we've got John Boehner is resigning. John Boehner is leaving the post as soon as we have a new Speaker of the House. The front runner, Representative Paul Ryan. Now, Paul Ryan said, I don't want the job. I'm not looking to be Speaker of the House. And then he said, unless I can unify the party and there aren't going to be these vacate the seat petitions that are coming my way, I don't want the job. I'm not going to take the job. He also said that if he took the job, he wasn't going to do the same things that John Boehner did. In other words, as Speaker of the House, he's not going to travel the country. He's not going to campaign for other people, that being with his family meant more. But he did say that the role of the Speaker is one that should unify and not one that should divide his party. The Freedom Caucus, which is a growing number of very conservative members of the House of Representatives, including one of the representatives from Arizona, Matt Salmon. Now, there are a few members from Arizona that are in that caucus, but Matt Salmon, the most vocal and on leadership. I had him on the radio show this week, and he was a detractor of Paul Ryan until they met with him the night before. A supermajority of the members of the Freedom Caucus backed him. Now, he didn't get an endorsement. Paul Ryan did not get the endorsement of the Freedom Caucus, but a supermajority did say they would vote for him. So in that case, they do get those votes. Matt Salmon said he thinks it's the right thing to do. He was proud of the fact that John Boehner's out of the office, that the Freedom Caucus helped make sure that McCarthy didn't get it as just the next person in line. And he believes that Paul Ryan deserves a chance to finish off the term for John Boehner. If he does a decent enough job, then the caucus can support him in standing up for some of the president's agenda. I think from the Republican point of view, their biggest issue with leadership has been that no one is pushing back hard enough against what the president is trying to do. And they don't think John Boehner did it in the House, and there's many people that think Mitch McConnell's not doing it in the Senate. So here's the deal with Donald Trump. He leads the GOP field. 32% of Republicans back him. Over 40% of Republicans believe he will win the nomination. Not all 42% are supporting him, but 42% believe that he will win the nomination. Second is Ben Carson. But Ben Carson only has 15% of the people believing he'll be the nominee. Here's where things switched this week. Ben Carson, in 2 separate polls, is now beating Donald Trump in Iowa. For the first time, someone is beating Donald Trump in a poll. Trump is much more popular with men. Marco Rubio, now he is a politician, but he is one of the only elected officials right now that's gaining ground. Carly Fiorina has fallen off. Marco Rubio seems to be gaining some momentum, and that seems to be the talk now as we're getting closer to the Iowa caucuses, is that now we're seeing Ben Carson making a big move where he's actually leading in a couple of polls in Iowa. It's fascinating to see how things are changing back and forth and how we're starting to see some people moving in and out. And by the way, very quickly, just a side note that Lincoln Chafee and Webb both out on the Democratic side, which only leaves 3 candidates on the Democrat side of the ticket of who may be the presidential nominee. And we all know now, without Joe Biden in there, clearly Hillary Clinton is the front runner. Now, one more thing locally. In the state of Arizona, John McCain came out with his Hispanics for McCain coalition. Well, Emily's List is a group that's supporting the Democrat Ann Kirkpatrick, who is running against him. Emily's List, some people found this to be very insulting. They said that John McCain's Hispanic caucus and him going somewhere and kind of launching this was no more than him stopping at a taco shop, eating a taco for a photo op, and then neglecting the Hispanic voters in the state of Arizona. They have now asked, the campaign has asked for, and Hispanics for McCain have asked for, an apology from Emily's List for saying such a thing. So I think it's funny how politically correct everybody has to be until, well, you don't have to be. So Emily's List saying some pretty inflammatory things about that. Coming up in a few moments, we're going to spend some time on Hillary Clinton's testimony, because Hillary Clinton testified before the Benghazi committee for 11 hours. Did they learn anything? Did they learn anything from Hillary Clinton? There are 2 things that I think are important to the American voters when it comes to Hillary Clinton and Benghazi. 2. We'll talk about what those 2 things are. Did we learn anything about that? We'll do that here in a few moments. By the way, make sure you hit us up on social media. Love the interaction there. We'll be back here in just a moment.
The Mike Broomhead Show is brought to you in part by Cliff Castle Casino Hotel, Arizona Christian University, and Sanderson Ford.
So it's 11 hours of testimony. 11 hours of testimony before the Benghazi committee. Hillary Clinton sits down and answers questions. Well, you know, they would go Republican, Democrat, and so it was partisan. You heard the Elijah Cummings from the Democrats basically saying that this was all political. And then the other questions from the Republicans, but what clarity did we get? Did we learn anything? Did it change anybody's mind? If you didn't like Hillary Clinton and you thought she lied before, you thought she lied when it was over. If you supported Hillary Clinton, then you thought that everything went just fine for Hillary. As a matter of fact, the media was so thrilled with her testimony. One of the headlines with one of the major networks was that she came out of this unscathed. What was this really about her political career? Was this about her running for president? Let me tell you what the 2 things America wanted to know. First, did you protect the people that should have been protected? That's it. Did they ask in advance for protection? And the answer is yes. There were hundreds of emails where they were asking for more security. And secondly, did you lie to cover it up? First of all, her lies about the emails are ridiculous. Hillary Clinton said she used that email address because she had one of these. And it was so much easier to have one email address on one of these. I'm not the Secretary of State. I have 2 emails on mine. Look at that, how technologically advanced I am. I have 2 email addresses on my phone. So it's a ridiculous excuse. When it comes to the deleted emails, what were they trying to hide? Is there anybody out there that believes that she was telling the truth? I mean, just be honest for a moment. Let me take you to another scandal involving the government, because you're not going to find anyone that is more pro-military than I am. And yet, when Pat Tillman's family got lied to by the Defense Department, about his death, I was one of the first people that said the government and the military lied to the Tillman family and how reprehensible it is. It didn't change my love for the military. It didn't change my feeling that it is an honorable place and it's an honorable profession to be a soldier. But they lied to the Tillman family. And now Hillary Clinton was a part of a cover-up. They said for 2 weeks from the White House and Valerie Jarrett, and they sent people out saying that this reprehensible, offensive video caused an uprising, a spontaneous uprising that led to the death of 4 Americans. Hillary Clinton herself said the exact same thing. Hillary Clinton went on the day that they had the memorial service where the bodies of those Americans were returned to an Air Force base, and they had this memorial service. Hillary Clinton approached those families who have testified before this Benghazi committee, and she said to those families, we're going to get the people that made that video. As if that video is what spawned this attack. And everybody now knows that's not what happened. The American people want to know a couple of things. They want to know, did you do enough, knowing what you knew, to protect those people? And then we want to know, why were you a part of the cover-up? There's no doubt she lied. There is no doubt she was a part of a 2-week effort to blame this on a video. Then she testifies, at this point, what difference does it make? With all due respect, Mrs. Clinton, it does matter. The American people deserve to know the truth. Those families deserve to know the truth. Why were you a part of a cover-up? Why were you a part of a group of people that went out and said it was a spontaneous attack? She says she takes full responsibility for those deaths. No, she didn't. If she took full responsibility, you tell me why you're still qualified to be President of the United States. We have to drop the politics. If you lied, we need to know that you lied. Take responsibility for the lies. And it shouldn't be Republican and Democrat. And I don't think that there are many people that think that she told the truth. As far as I am concerned, Hillary Clinton needs to take responsibility for her part in that cover-up, and she has to answer for, as Secretary of State, did she do enough to protect those people? You're never going to be able to prevent deaths all the time. But can you, in hindsight, look back and say, we did everything that we could? Those are the questions that could have been answered in an hour, not 11 hours of testimony. All right, coming up in just a few moments, we're going to talk about a tragedy here in Arizona. Tempe Town Lake, an entire family drowns because the father intentionally drives his family into the lake. Interesting details about this. And there was a gun found in the car. We'll talk about that here in a few moments. Thanks for being with the Mike Broomhead Show. Don't forget social media. We'll be back.
The Mike Broomhead Show is brought to you in part by Cliff Castle Casino Hotel, Arizona Christian University, and Sanderson Ford.
Story that got national attention this week was the Baxter family. This is a family of 5 dead in Tempe Town Lake. And at first, no one knew if this was a horrible accident or a murder-suicide. And as details began to come out about this story, it was a familiar story. Couple breaks up over some domestic violence issues. Husband had been troubled in the past, had committed act of violence, and was somebody that really was told he needed some anger management classes. Wife was getting an order of protection and said, you can see the children when you go to anger management classes. But then as the details came out about this, it became very obvious that this was an intentional act by a disturbed man. What he did was went with his entire family. They were at an apartment complex right at Tempe Town Lake, right by the Scottsdale Road or the Rural Road Bridge, and got out of the car, looked around to find a place that the police called the path of least resistance to the water, got back in the car with his entire family, backed out of a parking spot, and then drove directly into Tempe Town Lake. The car flipped. It wasn't fully submerged, but the car flipped, and all 5 members of this family perished. The question was, why didn't the wife fight? Her family said if she were able, if she were conscious, she would have fought. Well, the fact is, we don't know. The police say there was no evidence of trauma. She didn't look like she had been beaten up. But they also found a gun in the car. They found her cell phone on dry land under a bench. So there's a lot of questions being asked. But without getting too political, let me ask this question. They found a gun in the car that wasn't used. Had this man shot his entire family and then drove into the lake, we would be talking about gun crimes. We would be talking about why did this man have access to firearms. And it's very possible that he held the gun on this woman. That's why she didn't fight for her children. It's very possible he held her at gunpoint. But why does it matter whether it was at gunpoint or he drove them and killed them? They are just as dead, whether it was drowning or gunshots. Why are we not talking about the ability for someone to get mental health counseling? At what point can the courts intervene? It is a very dicey situation and a constitutional argument that must be fought. At what point can you forcibly medicate? At what point can you do something by force to force someone into treatment? Can you ever really protect an entire family from something like this? She said she was going to go and talk with him, that he wanted to talk. She probably in good faith for the good of her children wanted their father to be able to see the children, but wanted to make sure everyone was safe. And in the end, it cost the entire family their lives. We may never have the answer to some of these questions, but think about the fact that they found a gun that was not used in the crime and how different it would have been with this ridiculous talk about gun control. The family is just as dead. What a beautiful family, all of them perishing because of the act of a disturbed father. Horrible tragedy. Let's start seeking out some answers on mental health. That really is what we must do. Coming up in a minute, it's going to be Broomhead's Best. Hashtag this. We've still got some things to come up here on the show. Don't forget the social media outlets. We're glad you're here. Stick around. All right, it's my favorite part of the show. Something great that's happening, something going on right here in Arizona. We call it Broomhead's Best. Something I didn't expect. I would never expect that we would have a judge as Broomhead's Best. Judge Arthur Anderson gets my vote this week. Hands down, Broomhead's Best. There is an argument going on between the State Board of Education and the State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Her name is Diane Douglas. They have been fighting since she took office. She tried to fire a couple of board members. The governor got involved and said he didn't necessarily believe that she could do that constitutionally. They're in court over that. She's suing over that right. Well, the school board is upset because they move their offices. And when they move their offices outside of the building, the school board superintendent says that they don't have access to office computers remotely. So they sued her saying that they want remote access to school board computers. That's what they're fighting over. So the hearing lasted exactly 3 minutes. The judge said, we're going to get to the bottom of this. I'm either going to throw it out or I'm going to judge on its merits one way or the other as quickly as possible. But let me say one more thing. Could we please get back to the business of educating our children? And to that we say to the judge, you are Broomhead's Best. It's about time. Diane Douglas, of course, is saying that's what we're doing. That's not what we're doing. We have third graders that cannot read at a third grade level. The law says they must. We're passing them on because we don't know what else to do with them. We're giving them remedial training, extra money for that, but we are not servicing our children the way we should when it comes to education. We have got people in town from Google. We have people here from Intel. We have now got Apple is going to set up a world headquarters, and they're all saying our education system needs to be much better. If it's not, we are going to be in big trouble. And it's about time we focus on the kids and not the administrators. As a matter of fact, you fought like this in class, they'd send you to the principal's office. So good for the judge. And now it's the part of the show that we call hashtag this. What's burning up the internet? Well, of course, it's the Star Wars trailer, The Force Awakens. The 7th installment, it premieres December 18th. There were so many people buying tickets, it shut down all of the websites to buy tickets. There's also a hashtag, boycott Star Wars 7, because it's racist against white people. Now you know you're getting somewhere when they start sending hashtags out there about you. But in reality, I was from the generation of the very original Star Wars movie, which isn't the original movie. You're supposed to watch them 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, or you watch them the way they were released. That's what you do. Well, the other ones are prequels. If you want to watch the story, it doesn't matter. You either get Star Wars or you don't get Star Wars. I got to be honest with you. I'll wait until it comes out on Netflix, to be honest with you. I don't think I'm standing in line. Although, with the new graphics, I might go see it. But I'm one of those people that doesn't quite understand Star Wars. I know some of you are going to be angry that it happened, but I just don't understand Star Wars sometimes. That's just my take on it. By the way, Monday Night Football this week, it's the Arizona Cardinals at home against the Baltimore Ravens. Let's go Cardinals on Monday night. And next week on the show, from the Veterans Medical Leadership Council, Sam Young. Each year, we do a huge fundraiser that I'm honored to be the MC of, and they are doing great work for our veterans right here in the Valley. So next week, Sam Young will join us. You are going to love what's being done for the veterans on behalf of some really, really good people. They make sure that the veterans are being cared for, and it's through the benevolence and the giving of people right here in our community. So you'll meet Sam Young next week. I'm glad you're here this week. I love the new set. It looks great. Thanks for being here. Don't forget the social media. We want you to hit us up there on social media. So until next week, take care. God bless.
Get more of Mike Broomhead on Facebook, Twitter, and of course weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on News Talk 550 KFYI.